So are we just going to stare at each other for all eternity? Or what? Ow. What now? Well, at least you're topical. As I continue floating in an empty void apparently exclusively populated by my worst nightmare, a flood of otherworld anime, I've decided to open this whole retrospective series up to voting on my obligatory plug you can check out in the top right corner. So follow me as I discuss trends, history, and create more conspiratorial connections in a vain attempt to figure out what this whole isekai thing is about. And today's series was the first isekai I looked at when I started this channel back in 2018. Not to be confused with this video series. Where most focus on a person saving the world from some imminent threat, we're looking at a show about a guy stuck in a monster's body who does his best not to live up to the stereotype. We're looking at Tensei Shitara Slime Dataken, or That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, if you're more comfortable with that one. Let's get this over with because it's predictable. Starting as a web novel on Shosetsuka ni Naro back in 2013, Slime at least had the common decency to wrap up its self-publishing phase by 2016. 3 years from start to finish doesn't sound too bad, but it's still a ton of writing, which can be good and bad considering there's a lot of raw storyline to convert, but a lot of that needs cleaned up and trimmed down. Does that mean it followed the Gate route, getting its web novel done before shifting to the light novel format? Hell no. It was grabbed by Micro Magazine in 2014 for its adaptation. The jump from web novel to light novel came pretty quick, from February 2013 when the series started on Shosetsuka to May 2014 when the first volume hit, so a little over a year. A manga adaptation followed suit in March 2015 where it was serialized in the monthly magazine, Monthly Shonen Serious, by Kodansha, the largest Japanese print publisher in the market today, the same company that prints Weekly Shonen Magazine, not to be confused with Weekly Shonen Jump. But this one didn't just get one manga. Oh no, we ended up with 4 separate adaptations and spin-off works, all written by the original author and illustrated by different artists. Well damn, I could learn a thing or two about milking a franchise from this one. But that's not what you're watching this for. No, the meat and potatoes of this is the anime adaptation that hit in October 2018. And god damn did it hit. In 2016 and 2017, the light novel sold respectively at around 200,000 units per year, but come 2018 when the anime was announced, sales doubled for that year alone, landing it in the coveted spot of one of the top-selling series in 2018. Now the manga fared a bit better, moving around 3.5 million copies that year, which is pretty damn well for a monthly series. Did the anime do its job? Well, boosting sales to that degree? I'd say it certainly accomplished it, showing us that even a genre as tired as isekai is still able to see numbers like this. So, Reincarnated as a Slime. It's an isekai, but one that's more throwback than what we see these days. Sure, it's a guy, another world, amazing powers, but there's some older tropes reintroduced in this franchise that are tweaked enough to feel fresh. Rather than summoned or teleported for no reason like a ton of other franchises that were coming out around that time did, our guy was murdered in an act of random violence and found himself in another world. But even then, where most were just, now I'm in another world, this series threw a wrench into that. Can you guess what it is? I'll give you a hint. It's in the name. So, yeah, he was reincarnated as the weakest type of monster in that world. So definitely following in the footsteps of something like Overlord with this one. But while that parallel seems apt on the surface, being sent to another world in a monster's body, he's not in the villain role. It's more typical isekai protagonist style crap, where it's generally a good-natured person out to make the world a better place. Given his new form, humans aren't going to accept him though, since he's a monster. So he buddies up to some goblins, applies some human civilization to them, and spreads a peaceful message to the surrounding monster tribes, eventually building himself a whole city, with goblins, orcs, ogres, and lizardmen. Like I said, that's a pretty standard setup. A guy making modern amenities in these fantasy worlds. But the twist on that tired formula is being done with monsters rather than humans, turning a usually antagonistic relationship normal, by fostering relationships between these creatures and humanity, which is, admittedly, a welcome shift. And speaking of the world, it's a pretty standard fantasy, you know, where the sword is the most modern piece of technology, but magic and monsters fill in a lot of the transportation and enemies. Like magic lets people teleport, attack, or light cities, Pegasi and stuff are used to fly from place to place. Just about every other isekai sets itself around this time period with these elements, so the main dude can impart modern ideas and technology into it. We've seen it before, and honestly, this one retreads the same ground wholesale, though it does focus more on the whole building a town and civilization because the guy is starting from scratch. And that sort of leans into the video gamey elements too, being skills are common as hell. It's a sort of system that's supposed to be invisible, but everyone's aware of it. And our main dude gets a power that's basically suited for his new body perfectly. He gets to eat others and gain their skills. Oh, and he has a skill that basically tells him whatever he wants to know. Acquiring abilities fuels the power system of this world, and our dude is able to amass them pretty easily, and that makes him a super powerful badass. So building a town and getting monsters and eventually the whole world to recognize him tells you that yes, the world eventually revolves around him. Pretty quick too, with powerful monsters flocking to join his side, and creating a nation of monsters. He's both mistrusted and feared, until he convinces people he's there just to live in peace. That, in turn, leads to our obligatory harem of monster girls fawning over him. Yeah, they're fawning over a ball of goo in this one. That can turn into an androgynous lolly character. Japan, I don't know if you're being weird again or if you're actually being progressive with your gender views for once, and I'm probably going to be a bit disappointed, so I'm not sure I want to know the answer here. Either way, we've got our powerful badass with the world revolving around him, a harem. Yeah, you see how this fits my definition. So what did slime do for the industry and the genre? Well, quite a bit actually. Isekai was on a downward trend after Overlord, ReZero, Konosuba, and such were out. Other franchises failed to really grab an audience. Smartphone was probably the most notable non-sequel title to come out between the bigger franchises and this, and the few things that were being announced weren't exactly drawing interest. But then came a show about a slime being a generally pretty good dude and having fun in another world. People latched onto that because it was still telling a story, but also a pretty chill experience. I should probably also include that this was one of the first isekai franchises that had the main character openly interacting with others who were sent to that world. Sure, it happened in Konosuba, but that was more for jokes. And here it's actually impacting the storyline rather than being used for parody. It opened the door for more franchises to hit the mainstream that didn't necessarily want to be world-shattering adventures or to laugh at themselves too hard. It showed success can be had just by telling a somewhat quirky story, embracing the absurdist elements of the power fantasy trope, and just letting the series breathe. In essence, this was one of the first isekais to hit the market that lacked an established goal for the protagonist, that still found something to do with its time. Which really feels like the difference between, and I know I'm gonna try and sound relatable here and fail at it, but Minecraft creative mode and survival mode. Neither really have a goal, but at least one of them gives you something to occupy your time with, which is what Slime does. He builds a country and makes friends, and that leads to an engaging watch at least. Reincarnated as a slime wasn't the greatest isekai. Hell, whether it was even good is arguable, but it was fun, which is what people care about. It took a lot of what makes isekai dumb and leaned into it to explore world building rather than adventure. By showing political and interpersonal relationships, it found an audience and secured itself as one of the better isekais people are eagerly waiting for more from. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and do all the other YouTube stuff to help the channel grow. You can also join my Discord with a link down in the description. And if you really want to support me, like I said at the beginning of the video, you can head on over to my Patreon and pick up some extra perks like voting on what I do next. Thanks for watching.